I'd like to call this Jacksonville Planning Advisory Board regular meeting to order. If you'll please stand. Steve Forney will lead us in the pledge, and Al Keys will deliver the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Almighty God, thank you for the privilege of serving as a member of this planning board. And thank you, Lord, for the work that we do for the city. I pray that you would give us wisdom this night, as you do each time, that our decisions will be sound. And Lord, that those decisions will be for the benefit of the city as a whole. Lord, we pray for the storm victims in Jacksonville and Oslo County. We thank you, though, at the same time, Lord, for the recovery effort and for those that have come forth to help their neighbors. We thank you for that. We thank you also for the armed forces and for this great country of ours. So it's in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Steve. I'd also like to welcome everybody. If you're watching us, hopefully if there's nothing better on TV, you might want to watch something else. But we'll make this a good meeting. We'll try to keep you entertained. At this time, if we could get a motion on the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Steve Forney to approve. Second by Teresa Vanderveer. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes. Now, for the minutes, I'm sure you all have a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. August 13th, that was 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
A few moments to look over it. Any corrections or deletions or additions or anything needs to be changed? If not, a motion would be in order.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion approved by Steve Forney, second by
Second.
Al Keys. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes. City Council update. Very honorable Councilman Ward. Go for it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We just had one item of business at our August 21st meeting that related to what y'all had advised us on. That was the ABRA body shop out at Yop Road, out in the Walmart off Yop Roads area out that way. We did approve the site plan and let's see, special use permit. So just like y'all did. So that's it. And of course, I'm share the prayers that you offered in regard to the city. Recovery effort is going on, and we still have a lot of people that are still homeless or have some issues with their house, pretty serious. And we've got another storm coming our way, and hopefully we'll be spared the worst of it. So, especially those who don't have any roofs, rain's the last thing they need at this point. So, but making progress.
Do we still have people living in shelters?
I don't know about the shelters. I think we probably still do. I know that approximately 46 families in 46 city employees have had pretty severe damage that are not able to live in their house right now. Out of pick a number, 560 some. So a little less than 10% of our city employees are still not living in their house. So it's been tough. The city has gotten some help from United Way as far as being able to contribute. So the city employees are able to contribute to helping their fellow city employees with their housing needs and whatever other needs they might have. So through United Way. So. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for those few minutes.
Okay, there being no old business, we'll go right to new business. Who's up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one item on tonight's agenda is a special use permit and type 3 site plan for 149 Broadhurst Road submitted by Verizon Wireless. This is a proposed 159 feet tall cell phone tower or telecommunications tower proposed on what you would know as the fairgrounds. It is at the very rear of their site. You'll notice the vicinity map before you. This is aerial photography of the site. You'll notice the location very close to the city's sewer line. Is it a main, Ryan?
The force main.
Force main easement there. This property, along with those to the north, east, and west, are all zoned office and institutional. And then properties across the creek to the south is the military base, in this case, Camp Geiger. Speaking of the base, when this project was submitted, you'll notice on either side of this map the two purple hashed areas. Those are the city's flight path overlay district. So while it's not proposed to be located in a flight path overlay, the city did work with Marine Corps Air Station staff, who's represent the base as a whole, to make sure it met any requirements that they may have in their mission, and they have signed off on it with what we have in this package. Before you is the site plan. This is the general site plan, just to give you an idea of where it is again on the site. Broadhurst is running there onto the right side of the map. Again, noting that it's well located in the rear of the property. Again, this tower is proposed at 159 feet tall. The applicant is Verizon Wireless. This was the first tower that we had went through the city's new process, and there is a comprehensive review by our consultant, Carolina Telecommunication Services, who's represented by Mr. Rusty Monroe here tonight. They've identified that this is a needed tower in the area. It will have spots on it for additional co-locates per our ordinance. Verizon Wireless is represented by Mr. Jim LePan, and staff is recommending approval of this request with conditions. They did have some minor TRC comments to address. But we are recommending approval of findings of fact A through G being found in the affirmative with condition. Staff, along with our consultant and Mr. LePan, would be happy to answer any question that you may have.
Once a tower like that is put up, how much traffic do they have going to it?
Very minimal. Fire does require some access to it, the ability to get a truck back there mainly during construction. But the only real traffic it'll be during when they're updating equipment or you have additional co-locates, more antennas going onto the property, but traffic is very minimal.
Because they can rent space to other
That's correct.
communications.
So Verizon is sponsoring that this is their tower, but they will have spots for other wireless providers.
My question is regarding wetlands. I know it's close to wetlands, and I think that's covered.
Yeah, it's
here.
actually it's wetlands and the floodplain, but it is out. It's again, if you remember, we had a cell tower last year off of Western at 455 Western, and the same thing there. The cell tower, they're located where they are because it's out of the way. It's not in the middle of intensive development, and it's in land that this is most identified as the highest use of it. But they would still have to meet any requirements if they were impacting those areas of environmental concern, but they're not. They're just out of those areas.
Go back to the previous one.
The aerial?
One before that. Now, is that land behind there usable? That's next to Camp Geiger?
It's very wet. There is a creek running through there, And again, I think that's why the city's main force main actually goes through there, because you're not going to have a lot of development in that area, if any. There is, I believe, a pedestrian trail that goes back there now. But I do not believe, from an environmental standpoint, that it's very usable.
And then you have the bypass as well.
That's right.
So that you've got, it says Camp Geiger, but that's actually military
Yeah.
land between the bypass and the fairgrounds.
And I was thinking it's an ideal spot for it. Also, as long as it didn't infringe in the wetlands.
That's right.
Because nothing else is likely to go back there behind it, so it's.
I mean, I think that's why it's continually uses our fairgrounds. Except for this year because of the storm.
Do they just pay rent to the owner of the land?
They
Is
do,
that how they work it
they
out?
do not actually subdivide. They have a leased area. And that's what you have identified before you on this. They have a leased area that includes the compound and then our 30-foot type A buffer around the compound. But they do not actually subdivide the property.
And when I was reading it, what is it had to be revised in accordance with the TRC?
Yes, we had some, just our standards when it comes to site plans. Just some minor oversights on, that needed to be added, some information on a couple of sheets, but nothing that was show-stopping, nothing that we can't work through and have added onto the plan after the fact.
One of the items was that they hadn't provided a survey. They had one, it just wasn't in the engineer's packet, and they've since provided that. But when we prepare the agenda items, sometimes we just have to go or no go, and we decided to go because the comments were minimal, while they either have provided some of the information or they will provide. It just allows their process to continue to move forward, and it's not significant enough to really change anything as far as what you're seeing on the drawings.
So the safeguard on that is that they're required to, provide that information before they get a building permit. So they can't really do anything until they provide that and it's analyzed.
So there were 4 comments, correct? And you're saying one of those has already been addressed, or the others are?
That's right.
addressed?
That's
One
right.
on the survey?
Yeah, we've
Survey
gotten the
requires,
survey,
yeah.
and they had to update a detail that with the city's silt fencing, I believe.
Right, that sounds.
Survey, the requirement for the survey, the determination of which datum for the elevations they were used in 1929 or 1988,
Yeah.
and then addressing their sidewalk requirement.
What
And
kind of sidewalks do they require there? Just,
It's because it's a site plan, any road frontage requires sidewalk installation. They have very little road frontage, but it's still something that they had not factored into the equation. And coming back to the datum, that's an item that you would find on the survey. So that 2 of the things may have been identified on the survey, coupled with, it's not exactly normal around here right now. So we weren't going to hold them up over the minor comments. But they could have already uploaded the changes, and we just haven't got to it yet.
And they
on
are
all
actively
fronts.
working on them. It was just a matter of timing, because if you'll notice, on the timeline, we actually had this package submitted to us in August. And we've been working on it a while, and that was when we got it, but it was actually been with a consultant for some time before then, so, in an effort not to hold up what we deemed as a good project, not to hold it up any longer.
how many towers do we have in the city limits?
I can get you that info, but off the top of my head, I do not
I mean,
know.
a lot,
We probably have more than you may realize.
yeah.
And that's just not just ones dedicated to cellular communication or wireless. We have several television antennas and old antennas.
We lost our Verizon for a few days during the hurricane. Maybe we wouldn't have if we had this tower.
Possibly.
Any other discussion?
This is just right on the verge of city and ETJ, right? Or is it
Yes.
ETJ?
This is actually city limits. But yeah,
Okay. I mean, just
yeah.
right, barely there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and it probably provides service to the dense population of
It-
Beecham Apartments, and then additional services
Oh,
to
yeah,
Georgetown.
it has a very far-reaching area.
It's also, I was wondering how it fit in the overlay zone, the flight,
Yeah.
but it
It-
fits
it
about as tight as you
just-
can get.
yeah,
Yeah.
it put right in there.
Any other discussion? I'd like to remind everybody that if you're going to make a motion,
You have to add that.
yes, and the TRC comments in Exhibit B.
I will make a motion to approve this, the special use permit and type 3 site plan with conditions based on findings of fact A through G being found in the affirmative, and the site plan being revised in accordance with the TRC comments found in Exhibit B.
Very good. A motion by Ms. Vanderveer, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Forney. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, guys.
I knew we were
Good
gonna need
background.
that, so I wrote it in.
You did a great job. Time for reports.
Two items, Mr. Chairman. Now that we've got our yards kind of back in order, or some of us have, and we've got the lawn chairs back out, it may be time to stack them back up and hunker them back down. Unfortunately, it looks like we're gonna get some impacts of Michael here on Thursday and a Friday, based on the most recent forecast that I observed. And the second item is just to kind of say two other things. I was very privileged to work with this organization, very proud to have worked with this organization. I had the, some people may say, the unfortunate opportunity, but I was able to witness what this team can do, you know, in less than ideal situations. I had the experience of I stayed at the EOC for 3 straight days there, and got to watch Jacksonville's finest in action. And I remember getting a phone call from a temporary employee that was going to help us out to start damage assessment. And he called me, and I just remember looking at my phone. I worked, you know, I didn't go to sleep at all the first 24 hours. I went to bed at 6 in the morning and then got up at 8 and then was back at it. I think I laid down around 10 or 11 o'clock that night. And, you know, more than what some people was able to get. And got that phone call at 4 something in the morning, and they said, "Hey, I'm not gonna be able to help you out." And I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" And the comment was they were knee deep in water, and I'm like, "Well, if he's knee deep in water, we've got problems." So I jumped up and, you know, got to see, you know, Chief Hardison and his crew, you know, behind the scenes, if you will, kind of directing the water rescues that took place. And
And the Triangle Motor Inn rescue too?
yes, that as well. And the Center for Public Safety became a shelter for about 70 people.
Wow.
And because of the structural roof damage, the roof started peeling off. And, you know, probably at times where they shouldn't be, you know, out at all based on their wind ratings, where, you know, we don't like to respond unless we absolutely have to. Once it gets to a certain miles per hour gusts and sustained winds. And then just to see, you know, the IT folks and public services folks and streets and everything else, it was an honor to work with them. And if you hadn't seen the video that the media folks put together, I know council saw it on Tuesday night, I would encourage you to do so. You know, we were kind of engrossed in the situation. So, you know, the national stories that were kind of out there, I didn't even realize until I saw that video that was played for council Tuesday night. And it was pretty touching. And then I believe it was the Samaritan's Purse video. If you haven't seen that, that's another one where, you know, just watching your colleagues and knowing what your colleagues, you know, were part of and what they're going through. It was pretty amazing, although it was for not so good reasons. But, you know, as far as, you know, the Planning and Inspections Office, you know, we provided Saturday and Sunday service for folks that needed to get their power turned on that weekend following the storm. And then the following Saturday after that, we performed inspections and permitting opportunity, you know, for those folks that had the power turned off because of either damage or a tree fell on the service and it ripped it off from the house, you know, to try to get those folks to get their power turned back on. And just to provide service to our citizens, and couldn't have done that without, you know, my great staff and their willingness and ability to do that. And I believe one of those weekends I wasn't even in town. I was able to somehow get out, on something that had been previously planned months in advance, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without them. So for that, I appreciate and just proud to work with such a great organization. And I know you all have seen that, and I wanted to make sure that I kind of pointed that out.
The video that you mentioned, is that online?
It is on YouTube.
On YouTube?
You can find it on YouTube on should be on the City of Jacksonville's page. I can forward it to the board if you'd like.
We also waive permit fees for.
That's correct.
Till the 1st of November for hurricane damage, I believe.
Yeah, it was, we had that discussion at the EOC there, and I think you amended that on Tuesday night just a little bit, I think, to make it an even week. So we will waive permit fees through the 2nd of November, which is a Friday, versus cutting it off on Thursday. That's the game plan now. So I know that, don't hold me to this number, but I believe that there was like 150 permits that came in just last week, or Tuesday through Friday alone was around 150, 160 permits. We usually average between 70 and 110. It fluctuates, but a lot of what we're seeing is really just the storm damage.
They needed permits in order to repair their places?
Some items require permits. Anything electrical, if it's got to be, the example that I just gave you, I mean, when you have a tree limb or a tree fall on a service, and it literally, rips the wires out of the meter head. I mean, you've got to have a licensed person do that, so that requires a permit. And we knew that we were going to have a lot of those, and that's why City Council made, as they've done in the past, the decision to kind of hold our residents, harmless as it relates to those permits.
Makes me realize how fortunate I was not to have any damage other than a messy yard.
Yeah, and one of the things that's been, obviously this was a unique and historical storm. Even if it wasn't the Cat 5, it wasn't an Andrew like Miami experienced and South Florida experienced back in Hazel. It wasn't a Hazel in the 50s, but man, it just hung out for a long time.
Yeah.
And just the constant, tropical storm force winds, the hurricane winds, just the length of time and the amount of rain. We were literally driving down roads doing our damage assessment. That's another thing that our folks and the fire folks performed as well. We would literally be driving up and down streets performing damage assessment. We were having people come out of their homes and saying, hey, we just basically marked them as, unaffected or minimal damage.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, can you come in and take a look at this? Only to find out that all of the ceiling and insulation had fallen out of the ceiling because of the water.
30 plus inches of rain.
The wind-driven rain, the shingles removed. I don't know if I believe water was going in ridge vents in some cases, and it just saturated the insulation, and all of a sudden the ceilings just started, collapsing inside on people's belongings. So, it looked like a perfectly fine, no tree damage in the yard or no tree on the house, and the house looked fine, but inside it told a different story. And, that was, I think, one of the most shocking things for us is that, it looked perfectly fine, and there was thousands of dollars worth of damage inside the home because of the ceiling failures, the roof failure.
The difference between this one and Fran, in my opinion, the storm dumped so much rain and it stayed here. That's what really did the issue. We probably lost the same amount of shingles in both storms, Florence and Fran. But because of the amount of rain that came in, I think that we had much more damage inside that wasn't visible, even though, you look and see some few shingles missing, like he's saying, that's not too bad, but inside you might have had a ceiling in the bedroom or kitchen just come down. Fran, I had a hole punched in my roof about yay big from a tree that fell on I know someone who had about the same hole punched this time, and he lost all of his downstairs kitchen and living room and furniture just because so much rain came in that hole. Even though the tree limb was still stuck in it, it created a funnel somehow, and all the rain we just inundated. Just amazing the amount of ceiling that's down, all the sheetrock and insulation that's down across the city. And you could see that if you rode around. If you rode around recently, you've seen all of the sheetrock and the insulation laying alongside the roads. I mean, there are a lot of neighborhoods.
And a lot
got
of
that.
work for the city to pick up all that.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because
Yeah.
that brings one other item, since we've got some airtime that we'll point out. So the city of Jacksonville has contracted with a debris removal company, and they're in the process right now of primarily dealing with the vegetation, the tree, the limbs, and that's taken, and it's being processed, turned into mulch, basically. They're grinding it down across from the Center for Public Safety. It's quite the operation. And then they'll also get into the construction and demolition debris, which is the insulation and the sheetrock and those type items. That will be taken to, I can't remember the name of the facility, but it will not go to the Onslow County landfill. The only exception to that, so most of the city's damage, or the city's debris won't go to the county landfill. The exception is the commercial. FEMA doesn't pay for the commercial demolition removal, so that will be taken to the county landfill using the city crews, from what I understand.
Now, when you say commercial, you mean like mattresses and,
I mean, like businesses.
oh, for businesses?
So our crew that we've hired, the contracting firm we've hired is basically doing just residential, as I understand it. I hope I'm not saying this incorrectly, but just residential. Lawn debris, and then they'll also do the construction and demolition. Commercial will be handled by the city staff
Okay,
or their own private folks,
Right.
and that piece will go to the county landfill. All of the residential stuff will either be mulch if it's vegetation, and it will be taken to a non-county landfill. I believe it's called Green Recycling Center, I believe is what it's called, in Maysville. So
So it's up in Maysville.
when
Right
you
off
say the
7th Street.
construction, I've seen so many mattresses.
that would be a C&D, construction and demolition. It's household items that are basically damaged.
Yeah.
So that being said, one of the key things we want to point out is that you need to go ahead and I know that it's tough on everybody, but our contract period is going to eventually run out. And, we want to encourage all of our residents to go ahead and get their yard debris to the side of the road so that our contractor can pick that up, mulch it, so that you don't basically miss out.
Yeah.
So I know some people, they're like, well, I'll get to it here shortly. We just don't want, at some point, we're gonna have to stop. And some of these trees that came down, are really large trees. And I don't know that, we're in the typical tree removal business here with the city, and we may not have the ability to haul this stuff away. So the main point here is,
Good idea.
I know that it's tough, it's probably the last thing you want to be dealing with, but we need you to go ahead and get your yard debris to the streets. Right there on the edge, don't put it in the travel way, bring it out to the back of the curb, if you will, and so that our contractor can pick that up and remove it. From what I understand, they've already made their first pass in every neighborhood, and they're starting on their second. So, if you haven't done that already, please do so that we don't, we don't want you to be passed by from having that lawn debris hauled off.
Sure, everyone saw the across from St. Anne's on Henderson Drive, that massive oak tree that took out quite a bit of power line and telephone and cable. They worked on that for a long while, and you saw how massive what's left is still there. I just can't imagine.
I think they took 3 days to clear that tree to where it is now, which there's still a lot left.
That's the house next to that one was one that I looked at on behalf of a rental company here, and like you said, it just tore the meter base, tore it off the house. So it was unlivable because you had no electricity, and so and you couldn't get anybody in till we got something cleared enough. And look, it took a couple of weeks to just be able to access the driveway, just be able to clear. It was so massive.
Well, like we have a big river birch in our backyard that some big branches need to be removed, but trying to get somebody to do it right now is difficult.
Yeah, it is.
a little
It
bit
is.
more than my son can handle.
Yeah.
And he's called somebody and they just weren't available.
Roofers and tree folks and sheetrock and installation
They-
people are gonna be
yeah,
busy for a while.
Busy. Painters,
Yeah,
painters do well too.
we'll have to get after that because those they're real huge branches that are hanging.
They'll go through that second, the first round through
Yeah.
took a long time, but that
Yeah.
second round won't be as slow.
Right, well, that's good to
They'll
know.
go
I'll-
through quickly.
That, I'll have a, get a, on that.
That's all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brian. Any other discussion? If not, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Vanderveer to adjourn, second,
Second?
and we're out of here.
Okay.
Meeting's adjourned.